Good morning, everybody, and welcome. It is Wednesday. It is December the 18th. We are just a week away from the Christmas holiday, and I am happy to welcome in and share the mic once again with my co-host, Mr. Mike Debate. He is accepting his reward or an award for being Mr. Rhode Island. Welcome to the show, Mike. How are we doing today?
La la la. Well, thank you very much for the award. I'm flattered. I didn't even have a speech prepared. I don't know. There were so many people that I want to thank. All right, now
as he pulls out the piece of paper.
Exactly. As he pulls out the gigantic
I'm not even prepared.
list of thanking my third grade gym class teacher, and I can't even do that on. Oh my God, yes. We won't even get into starting about how I feel about award shows and moments like that. But you know what? That may be good for this Monday coming up on the Festivus episode. That may be good. Airing of grievances.
Mm-hmm. There's actually a lot of good things that we are going to be talking about on Monday. And actually, the idea of an award show is actually kind of relevant to what we're talking about today because the NFL released their Pro Bowl selections yesterday. And if anything is like an award show, man, I'm only one coffee in, guys, so I apologize for saying reward and not award. So you're going to have to give me about 10 minutes to kick in here. But if anything's like an award show, it's the NFL Pro Bowl because we kind of know how much of a kind of a joke it is, but we'll get into that. Look, we got a lot of action. No Thursday night game, obviously, this week. We got 3 Saturday games and a full slate on Sunday, and then a big Monday night game between the Vikings and the Packers. So we're going to talk about some of the Pro Bowl rosters. We're going to talk about some of the news, NFL news and notes. We're going to give you our power rankings if we have time. We might save it for tomorrow just because there is no Thursday night game tomorrow. So obviously that shifts what we normally do on a Thursday. However, there is a lot to talk about because there's a lot of playoff implications on the line. And you know what? Let's we could start with the Pro Bowl because again, I mean, look, the Pro Bowl is I mean, I'll be honest, I have not watched a single second of the Pro Bowl in I don't know, years. I have no interest to watch that game. Even in between the championship weekend and the Super Bowl, I just have zero interest to sit down and watch that football game at all.
Well, the relevance to the Pro Bowl, especially when you cover the Patriots or you're a fan of the Patriots, is generally few and far between. Almost at no time do you see the Patriots actually doing any type of action in the Pro Bowl. They're usually either in the Super Bowl or a lot of the guys, if they're not in the Super Bowl, a lot of the guys will decline the invite, take the opportunity to spend time with family and do what they do. So, there isn't a whole lot of attention being paid. And I think nationally, the Pro Bowl has kind of become a footnote. It's not really considered a football game. It's a showcase. It's more or less an event rather than a football game. And, it's still, it's a great honor to those that are selected as all-stars, which is the equivalent. I mean, it's the football all-star game, let's face it. Mm-hmm. And it is an honor to be selected. It's an honor to represent your team, be able to go up against the best of the best and showcase your talent and be a part of that. It's always something that's going to be on your resume and something that'll stay with you. But as far as the game, the in-game goes and a lot of the implications, I think the Pro Bowl is it's basically an also-ran. It's not even, I wouldn't even consider it an appetizer to the Super Bowl or anything else at that point.
It's garnish.
It's just, exactly.
It's garnish. You can't eat it.
Exactly.
It's not satisfying.
It's just like, right. Absolutely. So, that's pretty much it. So, that's my thoughts on the Pro Bowl.
Well, look, I mean, honestly, I'm not a big fan of any of these like all-star games. I don't think, because again, a lot of these players, and I don't blame them. They go into it thinking like, what's the point? Why should we go and put our lives on the line? Unless you're Sean Taylor hitting a Pro Bowler on the sideline, or a punter on the sideline. That's my favorite Pro Bowl moment of all time. Just you know what I'm talking about, Sean Taylor. Out. So for any of you out there that may not know what I'm talking about, go look up the late great Sean Taylor highlights and just type in Pro Bowl and it'll be probably the very first thing, and it'll show up quite a bit because it's a great hit, and unfortunately you don't get that in the Pro Bowl, and I get it, why would you, and the fact that you play it before the Super Bowl, again, any team that competes in the Super Bowl, the two most relevant teams at the time, neither of them are going to participate in that, so it's kind of silly from that sense. And this isn't just football. I think it's the same way with other sports. I think the All-Star game in baseball is just, I mean, it's at least baseball, there's, you don't have to half-ass it. You know what I mean? Like, you can still kind of go out there and play hard because it's baseball and it's a little bit different. But even then, it's really like just a red carpet affair for a bunch of the big heads that really don't want to play an extra game, or are disappointed that they're not getting this extra weekend off. Hockey, the same thing. I mean, I hate games that are 12 to 11. There's no defense. It's boring. It's like, I never understood people who played Madden or any of those games on like Rookie and would just steamroll everyone, because that becomes incredibly boring to me very quickly. And in basketball, here's the thing, and we're gonna get off on a little tangent here because we are talking about All-Star games and Pro Bowls and all that stuff, and we'll get back to the Pro Bowl here specifically because there are a few, if we were taking this whole thing seriously, there's a few quote unquote snubs I'd like to bring up, but I'd much rather say, like, for instance, in hockey, I'd rather have over All-Star weekend some sort of 3-on-3 tournament. I really haven't put much thought into how you would put it together, but I'd rather see something like that. If we're going to go through the pomp and circumstance, like you brought up yesterday, if we're going to go through that whole dog and pony show of going out and have this huge weekend to celebrate the All-Stars, put them in a 3-on-3 tournament, have a few teams, get folks excited over the course of a couple days where you play a few games, and that's All-Star weekend, and that will showcase the talent. And in fact, it would also kind of give you a little bit more of that 3-on-3 overtime, which I love. Versus, obviously the shootout and all that other stuff. But, hockey, for instance, I think you can do that and make it more entertaining as opposed to East versus West or this versus that. Because it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't, don't get into the game. Same with the NBA. I mean, the dunk contest, I mean, how many times can you do the same type of dunk over and over again? That's kind of lost its luster. Same with the home run derby. There's some drama to it, but really you can only do it so many times. Like I said, I mean, we grew up, we watched, we watched the Mark McGwire home run derbies, the Barry, that type of stuff. And it's like, to me, it's hard to top that again. That could just be me being a little bit older and just kind of get off my lawn. But to me, all these games are just boring to me and kind of just a waste of time. And the Pro Bowl is no different, in my opinion.
Well, I think that's what they've become. I think because of, and a lot of it is the nature of the way athletics is now and the way professional sports is, players are not going to, go the extra mile when it comes to athletic contests like this. It's an exhibition. It's a glorified exhibition. And, I think to me, it's a lot less than exhibition as well.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is exhibition usually is to prepare for the season, their preseason games. You want to put forth your best, effort because you're either trying to, in some cases in football, you're trying to make the team, or in some cases, you're trying to work out injuries or come back or get your timing back. In this, it's a glorified exhibition for really nothing else on the line but just highlights. And I think a lot of athletes are looking at this and saying, I'm not going to risk the opportunity to get injured. I'm not going to risk the chance to go out there and to, hurt my team to, satisfy for one weekend. And I can understand the argument in that. Years ago, the All-Star game, I think, especially in baseball, was a very big thing. These were big games. They looked forward to playing each other twice a year. There was not interleague play. So I think a lot of that came into play as well. I think the National League guys and the American League guys both had chips on their shoulders saying, all right, which one is going to be the better league here? We want to go out and put our best foot forward. I can remember Pete Rose bawling over the catcher. I think it was Gary Carter or someone. No, it wasn't Gary Carter. Right? It might have been Terry Kennedy or one of the catchers just plowing into him at the at home plate. And you just don't see that anymore, and you won't see that anymore. But there was a time where these games got competitive, even in the NBA in the '80s, and these teams were so competitive. Isaiah Thomas, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. I mean, these guys looked forward to battling one another, almost as like a precursor to say, yeah, see what I can do here. Wait till you see what I'm going to do to you in the finals. And I think there was a lot of that back and forth. Today, there's a little more camaraderie. I think less emphasis on it, and it's glorified more as an event than a game. So, yeah, I agree with you. I'm not as big a fan as I used to be. I used to like the All-Star games when I was a kid. I used to look forward to watching them. I used to really enjoy seeing, especially baseball's All-Star game. That was like they call it the Midsummer Classic, and it really was. It was kind of like that midway point to the summer where you could really enjoy it. But nowadays, it just doesn't have the same feel. And the Pro Bowl never really did, to be honest. It never really did. That was never a game that was, overly competitive. You mentioned the Sean Taylor moment. Yeah, that was probably the most competitive I've ever seen the Pro Bowl in my life, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I just put up a question up on FPC or at FPC Radio Live on Twitter, just asking basically, is there anything you like about the Pro Bowl or any other All-Star game? So if you have any thoughts on that, please let us know. We'd love to discuss it and take in some other people's opinions, because maybe we're just miserable miserable New Englanders who just have no exactly. Yeah. Like we can't bother ourselves with wasting time on such a foolish event in our eyes. And again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that I think the NFL did do the Patriots a favor, though. I think they saved them the trouble of a bunch of players calling in and saying they're not going to go to the Pro Bowl because they're going to be busy that week. Because, again, put aside the fact that I think this whole thing is a joke, but assume for a minute that the All-Star or the Pro Bowl was important and I actually took a lot into this. So from that point of view, this is how I'm going to react. The idea that Julian Edelman's not a Pro Bowler is just it's baffling.
Ridiculous.
It's baffling to me. The Patriots, in particular, only had 3. Matthew Slater, which is kind of a given. If you don't put him in the Pro Bowl, then you're really not paying attention. Obviously, Dante Hightower was one of the other ones, and again, Stephon Gilmore. I mean, that's an absolute no-brainer. The Pro Bowl is a joke enough, but if you miss any more than what you have already, then it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, we have. Look, and there's a lot of deserving ones. I'm not going to sit up here and say, oh, Tom Brady should have been in. And no, it's the first time he's missed, quote unquote, missed the Pro Bowl, i.e., not been voted in since 2008. Obviously the year that he blew out his knee. And look, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Sean Watson, 3 very deserving players to be given this honor. So there's no complaint there. But look, Julian Edelman's been better than Tyreek Hill. He should have been on there. It just kind of speaks to this is a popularity contest, and it's not so much. This isn't the biggest issue. We'll talk about the NFC quarterbacks in a minute, because that's even bigger than Julian Edelman not going in. But you sit there and you just list or you talk about some of the players that could have gone for the Patriots. Devin McCourty should have easily been in there. I don't get the. I don't get the I just don't get it. I understand. I do get it. I do. It's all fan voting. It's all that. And like I said, this is a whole bunch of nonsense, and it's all about lobbying for votes and all that stuff. And really, who's going to go out of their way to vote for Devin McCourty outside of Patriots fans? So, yeah, it's just like I said. I never expect the Patriots to be in it. Just because, again, whether they're in the Super Bowl or not, I just don't expect them to show up, because it's really a lot of them are just like, all right, we just need this week off. We don't, we just finished the season, or we're about to play another game. We're not going to go. One that did stick out to me, though, and this is something that's pretty relevant, was a first-time Pro Bowler, Trent Brown, big-time left tackle out in Oakland now, and obviously the Patriots, I think, have really missed him at times this year, and I think he, I think he's been appreciated a little bit more now that he's gone than when he was actually here. But he was he was a beast on that line, and he's been doing well in Oakland despite obviously their struggles throughout the year. But okay, so NFC quarterbacks, because this to me is just it's funny. Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. Yeah. Well, obviously, I'm and look again, I feel like I'm falling into this trap of becoming one of those guys that picks on certain things.
This is not the first time this conversation.
Yes,
occurred.
thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Commissioner. We
Roger.
appreciate
You
that. We
always
know that.
you
Yes.
always have to remind us
Where
of that.
is Roger, by the way?
You know
He's
what?
Not next to me. He's not next to you. How does he show up on our conversation?
Yeah, he just pops in. He's always listening. Big brother,
We gotta
always
get a
paying
Where's
attention.
Roger chant. We got to get the Where's Roger chant that we had at Gillette, earlier this year. And basically every time there's an important game and he conveniently doesn't show up, we should really get a Where's Roger chant every time we hear that.
Yeah, well, I like that, and I do kind of miss those days of like his very obvious and deliberate attempt to avoid Gillette Stadium and trying to pass it off as anything but that. But I still would like to ask him about those 2015 PSI numbers. But again, I might be losing faith. It's only been 4 years, so. But look, Aaron Rodgers over Dak Prescott over Kirk Cousins. That's just to me. That's laughable. that's purely a reputation, and in my opinion, a kind of unwarranted reputation. Because again, what reputation has he had the last 4 or 5 years, other than, in my opinion, a underachieving has been great quarterback. I mean, he just hasn't been the same for the last 3 or 4 years, and this year has been. Like, here's the thing. Him and Tom Brady have had such similar statistical seasons, but only one of them is getting the treatment as if he's a shell of himself and someone who's incapable of carrying a team. The other was in the MVP discussion even up to a few weeks ago. So, because just go back and look at their stat lines from this past weekend and then look at the reaction from the national media for the two quarterbacks, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. So I do have a bit of an issue with that because, again, Kirk Cousins should have been in there. I don't have an issue with, obviously, Drew Brees and Russell Wilson. I think that's perfectly legitimate, obviously. But I think easily 2 quarterbacks right off the top of my head, Cousins and Dak Prescott, deserve to be in over Aaron Rodgers, and by quite a margin.
Well, and again, I think that you make some great points when it comes to that. Yeah, I agree. I do not believe Aaron Rodgers was a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback this year. I don't believe he has been. I believe Cousins definitely deserved a nod, or Prescott deserved a nod. To me, Prescott is really I know Dallas has had their issues, but not a lot of that has been the fault of Dak Prescott. I mean, I don't think you can necessarily, lay that all on his shoulders. I mean, he still ranks third among quarterbacks in completions. He's second in passing yards, fifth in total touchdowns, fifth in yards per pass attempt. He's at or near the top of every advanced efficiency metric in the NFL. So, I mean, to just throw away that type of season because of reputation, yeah, it's a little bit disheartening. I don't know why that happened. Look, bottom line, it's a popularity contest in a lot of reasons. And look, the reason why somebody like Brady is not put in is, one, because I don't think Patriots fans stack the ballot box for him, and second,
yeah, no one cares
because he really doesn't deserve the nod this year. Not over guys like Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, obviously, and Deshaun Watson. They've had better statistical seasons. They've been better at what they do this year than what we've seen from Tom Brady. Now, a lot of his stats and a lot of the problems with the stat lines have been things that have been beyond Brady's control. So he can't really control that, and he can't really do that. It's not necessarily a sign of him being gone and forgotten. It's just a matter of the fact that these guys have had better statistics, so I don't have a problem with that. But when I look over at the NFC, and you said that earlier, but with regard to Brady, but with regard to the NFC, yeah, I look at this and I say, yeah, I think Prescott and I think Cousins were probably more worthy of a selection rather than Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and look, I mean, again, this is pointless because at the end of the day, the Pro Bowl is pointless. I mean, there's right. No two ways about it. It has no bearing whatsoever on anything. And to be honest, if it's not in Hawaii, you just don't have it. I mean, that's to me the only it's the only benefit to what this game is, and I think it gives, unless you plan on playing more regular season and playoff games or any sort of extended series in Hawaii, this gives them a chance to have a yearly game, and again, that kind of adds a little intrigue to it, and that's the only reason I think it's still around. But now it's like in Orlando, and
it's going to be in Orlando.
Yeah, it's like I don't care. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, if someone gave me free tickets,
exactly.
I wouldn't bother driving out there. Like, I mean, it's like an hour away from me, and nah, I'm good. I'll pass.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. I mean, and not for anything, but I think the Hawaii intrigue also added to players liking or
Yeah,
caring a little bit more about being selected. I mean, who doesn't want a free
yeah,
trip to Hawaii? I
exactly.
mean, really, who doesn't want the opportunity to go out and hang around and do that in the most beautiful state in the union? And so, I mean, I think it's lost its luster a lot. But you mentioned Julian Edelman, and I have to soapbox here, folks. I'm sorry about
Go
that.
for it.
Having the opportunity to have covered Julian in the last 3 years, there is not a tougher human being that I've seen on a football field, really. I mean, the shots that he takes, the things that he has to endure and go through. I mean, for all the intents and purposes, people give Brady a lot of junk about being soft or anything like that. Tom Brady's tough as nails, folks. We've
Hmm.
seen that here in New England. Anybody that looks at it with an objective eye knows that this guy is as tough as they come. I'd put Julian right up there, if not even ahead of him in terms of toughness. He really does grit out everything that's thrown at him, and he's played through a tremendous amount of injuries. Despite that injury, he is third in pass routes. He's second in targets, third in receptions, 13th in receiving yards, and has caught 6 touchdown passes, despite seeing only 7 end zone targets. That's a great resume, and he's not as flashy as some of these big name receivers, which is one of the reasons why I think a guy like Hill got it over him.
Hmm.
You see the flash, the pomp and circumstance. He's very good at selling himself, and he's very, very good at being able to show like all the flash that he's got. Julian is not like that, but he does do his job and he does it well. I believe he definitely should have been Pro Bowl bound, and I really think this one hurt more than anything. For obvious reasons, for personal reasons, but for also professional reasons as well, because he deserved that nod. He should have been a Pro Bowler. To me, it's absolutely egregious that he's never been selected to one in his career.
Yeah, again, this is playing the game and just kind of going along with the fact that the Pro Bowl is, at the end of the day, it's a nice thing to have on your resume, because when you can say 12-time or 13-time or multi-time Pro Bowler on top of this, that, and the other, it's nice. It's a good thing to have, and it certainly it bodes well for post career accolades, whether it's the Hall of Fame or just how you're remembered. I mean,
Good
certainly
point.
that becomes
Yep.
an issue. I mean, it's so pointless at the time, but again, it matures well. It's like a nice fine wine, those Pro Bowl selections. So again, if you want to chime in, feel free. If you're watching us on Sportscaster or on Twitter or whatever, feel free to message us. I mean, I did put up that post on at FPC Radio Live. Just give us your thoughts if you have any sort of strong opinions on the Pro Bowl or any sort of All-Star game or anything like that. I mean, they're all kind of one and the same, so they all have similar complaints. But I did want to go back and we kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday, because obviously we spent a good amount of time talking about Drew Brees and everything like that. And I've been very fascinated with watching, and not just like the random egg accounts come out with their list, but people that I think have a reasonable take on where they place quarterbacks, in the all-time rankings, if you will. Again, for the most part, it's pretty it's subjective, but I think there's a reasonable grouping of quarterbacks that I think you can put together to formulate the top 10 or top 15 or whatever, and you can get a little bit more credibility than others. But I've been very interested to see how and where Drew Brees has been placed among those. And my gut coming into, if I were to be put on the spot yesterday, and I think I might have even mentioned this yesterday, so I apologize if I did bring this up, but I probably would have him 7 to 10 range. I mean, I've seen people put him in the top 5. And I'm not saying I disagree. I'm actually kind of intrigued with this, because it's made me think a little bit more. It's like, maybe I do have to reevaluate his career, because I've always kind of just accepted the fact that he's an incredibly great quarterback who's one of the best of this generation. But I've always just kind of, he's the third best behind Peyton and Tom in this era, and I still believe that, but maybe that's jaded my overall opinion of him, because I've seen a lot of people and some fairly credible people, and by that I don't mean Chris Sims, come out with their list and have him closer to the top 5. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, and I want to know, because I think this is the best way to do it, because it really kind of get your brain thinking. Where do you put him in this top quarterbacks ranking? And again, it's subjective, but I'd like to know your opinion.
It's definitely tough to say. I mean, you look at the great quarterbacks that have played the game, and you take a look at a guy like Montana. You take a look at a guy, even going back as far as like a guy like Johnny Unitas, which a lot of people forget how good he was during his era and how well he played the game. Roger Staubach, Bart Starr. There have been a lot of great quarterbacks that have preceded this era, even the '80s era. There are a lot of great quarterbacks that go back to the early days of the NFL. So when you're talking all-time rankings, it's tough for me to put Drew Brees ahead of some of those guys. I grew up watching guys like John Elway, Dan Marino, Joe Montana. These were phenomenally prolific quarterbacks, all different styles, all different capabilities, but these guys knew how to win. Obviously, Marino is lacking that Super Bowl title on his resume. That does hurt him, and it does hurt him in the rankings, which, for people that, want to whine about wins not being a quarterback stat, well, just take a look at that. That'll tell you something.
Look at the top 10 quarterback wins in the regular season and tell me there's a single bad quarterback among those top 10.
Exactly.
So again, you can sit here and pick apart wins week to week here and there, but over the course of an entire career, you don't just accidentally win a bunch of games. So go ahead. Sorry,
yeah,
I had to input that.
No, that's fine. No, I'm glad that you said that. That was a dynamite drop in, Monty.
Dynamite.
That broadcast school is really working out for you.
Yeah.
In any case, I'm not knocking Ian, folks. That's a line from Major League. I'm sure you guys know that. But in any case, with Brees, I would definitely, without any hesitation, not bat an eyelash putting him top 10 of all time. I think he definitely deserves that. I think he's in there, and I think you have to. But when it comes to that top 5, it's difficult for me to say that he absolutely deserves that spot. Now, that's not to say that he doesn't. I am sort of in the same league right now with you. I'm trying to really evaluate where, in fact, he ranks in the all-time echelon. When I really take a look at what he's done throughout his career and examine his stats, he may be a top 5 quarterback in my opinion. But right now, I still have, Montana. I still have Manning. I have Brady. Guys like that are at the top of. They generally are considered the holy trinity of quarterbacks now. When you take a look at rankings, it's usually Brady, Montana, and Manning in some way, shape, or form, some combination or permutation that puts them 1, 2, or 3, depending on how you're ranking them. But then after that, there's a little bit of a drop off. And does Brees deserve that spot in the number 4 or the number 5? His touchdown passing and his touchdown passing yards and his touchdown, totals are there. Regular season totals, they're there. But when you take a look at the entire package, sometimes there are other factors that have to be considered, not just individual stats. So, it is tough for me to say, but without question, I believe he's top 10. I don't even bat an eyelash with that. But top 5 is a tough argument. It really is.
Yeah, because look, personally, I would say Brady, Montana, Manning. I'd put Unitas, and look, I'll preface this with it's purely based on whatever information and whatever I can see for my eyes, and a lot of what people have told me about Johnny Unitas. Obviously, I was not alive to watch him play. So
neither
again,
was I. I know I'm old, folks, but I'm not quite that old yet.
But again, you can put together a reasonable you can come to a reasonable conclusion based on some of the information you have. So right there, that's top 4. And then when you're talking about 5, 6, 7, I'm talking Brett Favre. I'm not as high on John Elway as some people are, but I would certainly probably put him 6 or 7. And then look, a guy that gets so horribly underrated and never talked about is Steve Young. Like, right. I mean, people are like talking about Aaron Rodgers as this. Like, Steve Young was Aaron Rodgers before Aaron Rodgers, and Steve Young was better at being Aaron Rodgers than Aaron Rodgers. And to me, I feel like he just gets overlooked so often, and I feel like he could be thrown into that mix. And then you talk about the Staubachs and whatnot, and I do think I definitely think he is. I still, again, my gut tells me that he's in that back third of the top 10. And to me, I think that's a reasonable ranking. And maybe over time, maybe another Super Bowl, or depending on how the next year or so goes, maybe he can move up a little bit and kind of surpass some of these guys, like a Steve Young. But um, the bottom line is, any list that includes Aaron Rodgers in the top 10 is just laughable. So, and if anything, I've convinced myself just by going through some of these names so far, just that it would just be impossible for me to put him in that. Again, the idea that Breeze has been able to do what he has done. Now, again, that's not to say that he can't be surpassed, and maybe in a year from now, maybe once the excitement of everything that's happening has worn off a little bit, we can put it in a little bit better perspective. But I do want to bring up, and this is somewhat related because we were talking about this yesterday when it comes to the total touchdown mark, and I was really happy to hear this because I do like to listen to NFL Network Radio on Sirius XM, and trust me, I'm not getting paid for that. I wish I was, but I'm not. I'm just trying to preface what I was listening. And Brady Quinn, obviously we know, former Notre Dame quarterback and one of the many quarterbacks that have come and gone for the Browns. He kind of was talking along the same lines as what we were yesterday, and it's like he was like, you know what, the record's nice, but don't sit here and try to tell me it's this huge thing, because like Tom Brady has 609 touchdowns and so on and so forth. So he was kind of the same mindset we were when it comes to great. It was a nice record. You probably wouldn't run around parading yourself around in a kind of big show, to commemorate that. And at the end of the day, it's you can sit here and say most touchdowns of all time all you want, but in reality, it's just not true. And Brady is far and away tops in that category. So I was actually, it was refreshing to hear that. And again, this has nothing to doesn't. I don't intend to take anything away from Drew Brees, just kind of putting things in perspective. And again, this whole conversation, I think, kind of shows how much we respect Drew Brees and where we put him in the echelon of the greatest quarterbacks that have ever played this game, especially for a quarterback that's only been to one Super Bowl. And both of us hold the winning aspect of this to very high regard. I mean, you can't be the greatest at your position without winning, without success and championships and stuff like that. It's just, I'm sorry. You can scream team accomplishment all you want, but at the quarterback position, you cannot be the greatest without. Again, the standard gets set by whoever's the greatest at the time, and right now Brady's set a near impossible standard. To hit. So again, success needs to happen, and even though Brees has only been to one Super Bowl, only won one, I think his success outside of the playoffs has also warranted where he falls in this overall list. So we'll see how it changes over time, because again, we know how people like to react and live in the moment. So maybe the luster will wear off, especially if at the end of the year, i.e. in 2 weeks from now, Brady has that record and he doesn't. So. Which is incredibly I'm not going to say likely, but at least a reasonable thing to happen over the course of the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. There's no question about it. He has the ability to be able to be the number one, passing quarterback of all time within the next 2 weeks. You're playing Buffalo, stingy defense this week against New England.
Yes.
It's not like he's going to be matched up against the Cincinnati Bengals and at home or anything. And Tom Brady could go off a little bit and
or
start
the Colts
some touchdown
in
passes.
A dome. Or the Colts in a dome. Sorry, I lost my voice there.
That's all right. No, that's okay. That's okay. We picked that up on the mic, and I think it was actually good that we picked that up. But anyways,
good.
Getting back to what we were saying, what were we saying? Are we on the air? I mean, what's going on?
Oh no, I never press the button. So swear away and
damn it, that damn button! It just it's crazy.
Push the button.
But no, I mean, when you look at the echelon and you look at what the rankings are when it comes to guys like Brady and Breeze and some of the modern quarterbacks that we've had the chance to really not just watch as fans, but even cover, over the course of the last few years. It's been a great ride watching some of these guys play. And look, no one's taken away from Drew Brees. I think he's done a tremendous job in his career. I think there have been so many circumstances surrounding his career too, where he's been the subject of things that have been beyond his control. Not really the subject, but I guess he's really been affected by things beyond his control, and he still managed to be able to come through it and come through it with class and do it with dignity and a lot of skill. So you have to tip your cap to someone like that, and it's a great accomplishment. I agree with you. There needs to be a little bit of a brake pumping when it comes to stats like this, because it's such a big part of, there's so much that goes into ranking all-time athletes and all-time, it amazes me that, and this is in no way, and I'm not comparing the two folks by any stretch of the imagination. I will sit there and say right now, without any question, the greatest athlete that I've had a chance to watch live as a human being alive on this earth will be, and probably always will be, Michael Jordan. I mean,
I thought you were going to say
Michael
Rich
Jordan.
Garces.
Everybody loves some El Guapo up here in New England. We got to love that. Garces was he was a physical specimen, folks. And Google Rich, you'll find out. But no, Garces was
Guapo.
and he was a great guy too. I mean, he was such a fan favorite up here in New England. But Michael Jordan, to me, is still that gold standard of athletes that just, to me, will never be equaled. One of the things that you hear Jordan praised for so often, and rightfully so, is 6 NBA championships. Well, basketball is the ultimate team sport as well. I mean, I know that, individual players can affect games and whatnot, but when you play quarterback in the NFL, you're affecting the outcome of the game. You're not riding the coattails of a defense. You're not doing anything else. Yeah, maybe you can squeak out one. You can squeak out even a good season as a result of that. But sustained excellence over a long period of time is not something you can just throw away. I don't care if it doesn't meet your narrative and you just want to go ahead and start pounding your chest about wins not being a quarterback stat. To me, it doesn't hold water. It's a weak, ridiculous argument. Ian and I have been on soapboxes several times about this. Our feelings on it. But again, I think that has to factor in here. And when you mention that Breeze has only been to one Super Bowl, it does kind of open your eyes a little bit. And you sit there and you say, well, okay, yes, the statistics are great. They're excellent. But what do those statistics translate to? Does it translate to team success and winning? If it doesn't, and you're not making your team better around you, then, what good are some of the individual statistics? So in my opinion, I think that has to be a factor. And that may be one of the reasons why I'm so hesitant to put Breeze in that 4 or 5 slot as the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Like I said, admittedly, I need to really do a deeper dive into Drew's career all time. After doing that, I may feel differently, but right now it's tough for me to justify it.
Yeah, and again, I mean, if he goes out and wins a Super Bowl this year, that changes. He doesn't have any MVPs, and again, you can sit there and argue and say that's not in his control, but and maybe it was a little unlucky because he just happened to spend his entire career in the shadows of guys like Brady and Manning, who, again, like I said, are two of my top 3 quarterbacks I've ever, that I believe have ever played the game.
Right.
So that's and that's certainly not something to frown on. It's not like, oh, Drew Brees never won. No, he was certainly good enough to win MVPs, but and you can argue that 2009 he might have probably deserved that MVP over Peyton Manning, but at the end of the day, I mean, the fact of the matter is he doesn't. Peyton has 5, Brady has 3, he has 4 Super Bowl MVPs. So those are big deals, and you can argue team accomplishment all you want. People are obviously giving Drew Brees credit because he has quote unquote more stats. Well, he's thrown 2 more touchdown passes than Tom Brady in his career. He's maybe 1,500 yards surpassed him. No one ever brings up the interception totals because Brees throws interceptions at a 2.3% clip as opposed to Brady's 1.6%. Which, yeah, you might sit there and say, how is that? No, that's a fairly significant difference, especially when you go back and look at some of those 7 and 9 seasons and see the turnover total from Drew Brees. And at the end, again, I've heard other people say it too. You look at the circumstances, especially on offense for Drew Brees this year. It might be the perfect situation. You have Mike Thomas, who's just an absolute, arguably the best receiver in the game right now. I think you can make a case for that. You have Alvin Kamara. You have Jared Cook. I mean, maybe Julian Edelman is the 3rd best target on that team if he were to switch. Maybe the 2nd. Maybe. So, you look at the
Yeah.
circumstances, and then you factor in the fact that you play in a dome at least 9 times a year. Obviously, you play Atlanta on the road every year, so that's another dome. So that's 9 out of your 17 or out of your 16 games in a climate controlled dome. And if you look at his career splits, his numbers do drop a fairly significant amount versus inside and outside. So and whether you think that's fair or not, that has to be taken into account. Now, I mean, yes, I guess he did choose to play in a dome technically because he did choose the New Orleans Saints. However, that's clearly something that's not necessarily in his control because he didn't decide to put a dome in New Orleans. It just happened that they have a dome, but he's certainly taken advantage of it. And look, I'm not knocking him for it, but if we're having a discussion about top tier quarterbacks, that's certainly going to come in to play, especially when everyone's trying to compare themselves to what I consider the gold standard, and that's a guy who's played his entire career of about 230 some odd games outside in the elements. So it's an interesting discussion that I think is going to be pretty fluid, at least for the next couple of years as he continues to play, or at least continues to play well. And we'll see what happens. I mean, again, if he goes to the Super Bowl and wins, that changes things quite a bit. So we will see. We will see. However, with 2 weeks left, we do have several more playoff clinching scenarios this weekend. In the AFC, 4 teams have already clinched: the Ravens, Chiefs, Bills, and Patriots. Both the Bills and the Patriots have just clinched the playoff berth. They played this weekend essentially for the AFC East. So we will have a division winner by the end of Saturday afternoon. The Ravens and Chiefs have clinched the AFC North and AFC West respectively, and the Baltimore Ravens can win or clinch a first round bye with a win and a Kansas City loss or a New England loss. So, which again, I think at the end of the day they're going to end up having the number 1 seed. They would have to lose the next 2 games, and a lot of other situations would have to kind of play out for them not to have that number 1 seed. New England, obviously, with a win, will clinch the AFC East, which again, it's not going to be easy, but I think it's going to happen. And it also further cements their chance to get that top 2 seed, because if they win and Kansas City loses, they clinch a first round bye. Again, I think it's just a formality at this point. A lot of things would have to go wrong for the Patriots for them to lose that first round bye. The Texans can win the AFC South with a win and a Tennessee tie or loss. So obviously they meet in week 17. So if everything stays the same, the division's going to come down to 1 game at the very last week of the year, which that's awesome. I love that. I love how they've started to set up divisional matchups at the end of the year, because more often than not, we're getting some sort of playoff implications with it. And that's exciting to me. So, in the NFC, the crazy NFC that's the seeding is nowhere close to being determined. New Orleans, Green Bay, San Francisco, and Seattle have all clinched playoff berths. The Saints are the only one to have clinched the division so far, and they clinched the NFC South. The Packers, 49ers, and Seahawks obviously have a chance to do that. Packers can clinch the division with a win against Minnesota on Monday. Obviously, that's another huge matchup, late season matchup to determine a division. We got about 3 of those this weekend, to be honest, because you think about the Patriots and Bills, that's another one. Obviously, Green Bay, Dallas, and Philadelphia. I mean, yeah, they're what, 6-7 or 7-7, but they're still a division at hand, and they play this weekend. So Dallas wins the division with a win. Obviously, Philadelphia would still need some help in order to win that division even if they win. So. And Minnesota, obviously they clinch a playoff berth with a win against the Packers. So a lot of crazy stuff going on. I know we talk about the NFC a lot because, again, each and every week that the entire seeding gets turned upside down, because you have San Francisco losing unexpectedly. They're dropping out of the first round bye. Who do you think is ultimately going to get these top 2 NFC spots? Just out of your gut, who do you think is? Just guess. Throw a guess out there.
Ooh, that's it's. I mean, my gut right now, if you tell me just gut reaction, I would say San Francisco and New Orleans. Those to me are the 2 teams right now that would end up getting it. But you never really know for sure, and I think it's so. interesting to me that the Seahawks are definitely hanging around. They have a really good inside track to be able to get one of those seeds. But I just think in terms of consistency and in terms of balance on both sides of the ball, I think those are the two best teams in the conference. But ultimately, we'll see how it shakes out. That's my guess. But like I said, that's a guess at this point. No one knows what's going to happen in the NFC. It really is up and down, and there are a number of different teams that could end up, winning and getting, high seeding in that conference. So, yeah, we'll keep a sharp eye as we always do, but it'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out. Obviously, Green Bay is in. Green Bay is a team that I don't think a lot of people talk about when it comes to this conference. You hear a lot about the Seahawks, you hear a lot about the Saints, you hear a lot about the 49ers. Packers are kind of laying in the wings right now, but they have a tremendous record. They right now control the number 2 seed. So if all plays out the way it is right now and nothing changes, they're going to get the first round bye. And, it would be, I think, a surprise to a lot of people, but the Packers are one of those like scary good teams that may not get a whole lot of, legs in terms of which teams can actually make it to the Super Bowl. They have the talent to be able to do it. I still think there are other teams in the conference that are more talented, but ultimately it depends on how well you're playing into the postseason. And if they can get hot, that's a team that can string together some wins. So keep an eye on Green Bay too, folks.
This is flash forward to Mike next week talking about the Packers.
I was wrong.
I'm going to disagree with you because I think the Vikings are actually a better team in that division, and I think the Packers are kind of they're flying under the radar for a reason, and that's because I don't think they're maybe the 5th best team ahead of Philly or Dallas, whoever comes in out of that, that part of the division. I don't know. I just don't buy into the Packers. I don't think that their defense is that good, and I think their offense is what it is, and it's fairly bland, and it's basically all run through Aaron Jones and not Aaron Rodgers. So if you can slow down the run, and trust me, it's hard to do against Aaron Jones. He's a hell of a player. You can take control of that game pretty easily. So I think the Packers, and this might sound a little harsh, but are closer to frauds than actual huge contenders in my opinion. I actually think they're probably going to lose Monday night to Minnesota, and that will I think open the eyes to some people, because I think again they're flying under the radar for a reason, and to me it's because I just don't think they're as good as those other teams, and my gut tells me ultimately it's going to be San Francisco and New Orleans as those top 2 seeds. So despite a bad loss for San Francisco this past weekend, I still believe a lot in what they're doing and how good that defense is. And I do believe Jimmy Garoppolo is capable of winning some games for this team. We've seen it before, and we've seen him, really, really excel at times in high pressure situations. So he just got to clean up the turnovers. And if he can do that, then I think the San Francisco team is going to be in good shape to get that bye. So, but we'll see. I mean, again, it could end up being Minnesota and Seattle for all we know. You know what I mean? And that's how crazy the NFC is
exactly.
right now,
and there is definitely a possibility when it comes to that. So it will be interesting. For one, I'm really looking forward to this weekend slate. I think it's going to be huge. I think you're going to learn a lot about teams. New England and Buffalo. I mean, let's really, I know we talk a lot about the New England Patriots on the show and everybody rolls their eyes, but there's a lot of playoff implications for this one as well. Not only from the New England standpoint, but from a Buffalo standpoint. Mm-hmm. And that's a team that's for real, folks. Believe me, I've been doing my recon on them all week. They're playing much better offensively. They've got a very good defense, top 3 defense in the league. So, you can't just dismiss a team like that in terms of being able to win, not only this weekend against New England, but deep into the playoffs. I don't think they're really scared of too many teams. They went toe-to-toe with the Baltimore Ravens, had several opportunities to win that game. Obviously, the Ravens did come out with the win. Credit them. I'm not, taking it away from them. But the Buffalo Bills proved that they can hang with them. This team gets hot at the right time. They could be very dangerous in the AFC.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like, do we retroactively go back and give the Patriots credit for a quality win early in the season when they beat the Bills? Because, everyone would say, oh, it's the Buffalo Bills. It's the Buffalo Bills. Well, again, like you said, they're one of the best defenses in the league, and it's not a fluke. Are they limited at quarterback? Yeah, at times. But talk about a Pro Bowl snubs. Buffalo gets just one, and more than well-deserved. Tre'Davious White is a hell of a cornerback, but they only got one selection to the Pro Bowl, and that, again, kind of speaks volumes as to what the Pro Bowl actually is. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm getting sick to my stomach sitting here praising Buffalo right now. You got to understand how much this pains me to sit here and heap praise on a AFC East team that's obviously very close in the divisional standings, but I love. Do I think Sean McDermott complains a little bit? Yeah, I think he's got to kind of pump the brakes a little bit on that and realize that he's not, one of the best coaches in the league yet. You gotta kind of know your place and kind of just go and do your job type of thing. But I love what this team does. I love how they play defense. The offense is a work in progress. When they played the Patriots early in their season, and this is something that kind of I feel got overlooked at the time, but is obviously very much at the forefront now. But they gashed them in the run game. And this is something that concerns Patriots fans moving forward because, or the Patriots in general, because that's been their weakness, not just the last few weeks. This is
Definitely.
It's not like, and here's the thing, it's not like, oh, these teams exposed the Patriots. No, we've always known this run defense wasn't as good as the pass defense. I mean, the pass defense is clearly the strength of this Patriots defense, and the run defense isn't terrible, but there was a pattern very early on. We saw Josh Allen kind of pick up a lot of chunk yards. Frank Gore ran wild at times against the Patriots. So and again,
109 yards on the ground for Frank Gore.
A lot of big gains too. A lot of just wide open lanes
a lot
to
of
run.
chunk yardage that was given up by the Patriots. Now, one thing I will say about the Pats defense, their front seven much more stingy at stopping the run as of late. Lawrence Guy has stepped up huge. He's been amazing this season. And if you talk about second half, Pro Bowl selections, I'm not saying he deserved one for the entire year, but if you talk about just the second half of the season right now, Lawrence Guy is a guy that you really need to look at and say, what?
Here's a guy.
Here's a guy. Yeah, no, okay, no. Okay,
I need to get that soundbite.
Yeah, let's not. Yeah, we should. We really should. No, you know what? We hear enough of it. So
we don't need to forcefully give us any more Chris Collinsworth. That's we're good with that.
Exactly. I think we're good. I think we're
self-torture is not something.
In any case,
I want to do.
Yeah, definitely. But Lawrence Guy to me is someone that deserves a lot of credit on that. Adam Butler's been great. Danny Shelton as the nose tackle position has grown by leaps and bounds from what we saw from him last year. He's been tremendous in this defense as well. So if they're going to look to contain the Buffalo Bills this weekend, they're going to need to have a very good game from their front seven. Dare I say they may even have to play a little bit of that hybrid 4-3 that they're not be that comfortable in playing, but in order to be able to stop the run, especially a mobile quarterback like Josh Allen, who can beat you with his arm, he can beat you with his legs, that may be the best way to attack this Buffalo Bills team. So look for that a little bit this weekend. But ultimately, this is going to be a great game between two great defenses. It's going to be who can put points up on the board and who can get to the opposing defense just enough to be able to put enough points up to win it.
Yeah, and again, this just speaks to what great we have several great matchups this weekend. We're really going to dive into this stuff tomorrow. Again, there's no Thursday night game. We have 3 Saturday games, including the Texans and the Bucks, the Patriots and the Bills. And I believe I have it right here in front of me just to make sure I got the game right. We got the San Francisco 49ers and the LA Rams. So it's going to be a great Saturday of football, and we will start really diving into these games tomorrow. We're going to spend a significant amount of time tomorrow and Friday going through these because again there's so many games that have so many different implications for the postseason, which starts in just 3 weeks, which again is pretty incredible in my eyes. So we do just have just a little bit of time left, so we're gonna wrap it up here because again we don't want to jump into any new topic with just a few minutes left. Tomorrow we will give our power rankings. We'll start the show off that way we can get them out of the way, and then we're gonna dive into some of these Saturday games because there's a lot to digest. There's a lot to go over, and we're going to make some picks and make some bold predictions because, again, this is going to be fun. So, Mike, yes, that's right. Yes. Damn, it feels good. That's right. That's how I feel right now.
It feels good to be a gangster.
You know what? I might have to start doing my closeouts that way. So, maybe play that in the background. So maybe we'll try that out right now. So, folks, Once again, thank you very much for joining us for yet another Wednesday edition of FPT Radio Live. Stay tuned to Full Press Radio as we have Snowman in the Morning coming up here at 9 a.m. To noon. So tune in, listen on Full Press Radio. Follow us on Twitter. It's at FPC Radio Live. I am at IGLEN31. He is at MDABATEFPC. I'm getting into the music, Mike. I love it. Damn, it feels good, man. But follow him on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. We love to interact. Download the podcast if you missed the show, if you tune in late, if you just want to listen to us again. Head to Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, all those great platforms. Search FPC Radio Live. Go to fullpresscoverage.com/radio and get all that information. We have all of our podcasts, broadcast schedule, everything like that. So, folks, thank you once again for tuning in. We will be back bright and early, 8 a.m. tomorrow. We are going to break down these Week 16 games. So, folks, have a great day, and we will talk later.